So what happens when the very people sworn to uphold the law are the ones who break it? Today we're going to dive into the high-stakes world of professional misconduct in South Africa's legal profession and find out what it really takes to lose the privilege of being a lawyer.
This right here, this single sentence, repeated over and over by South African courts, is the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. You see, it's not a right to be a lawyer, it's a privilege, and that means it can be taken away. So what does that actually mean, for something to be a privilege? Well, it means it comes with a set of incredibly high standards. It's not just about knowing the law, it's about having a certain character, one of total integrity and honesty.
Okay, so here's the official definition. Misconduct isn't just about committing a crime. It's any behavior that breaks the rules in the Legal Practice Act, the LPA, or the Code of Conduct. But here's the crucial part. It's all about failing the test of being a fit and proper person. That's a test of character, and as you're about to see, it's the most important test of all.
Now, to make this a little easier to get our heads around, we can sort pretty much all misconduct into three simple categories. Think of them as buckets. Let's look at the first one, which, fair warning, is the most serious.
Yeah, this is where things get really serious. When you give a lawyer money to hold in their trust account, you are placing an immense amount of faith in them. And betraying that trust, well, that's the cardinal sin of the legal profession.
And that's exactly why it's often called the death sentence for a legal career. More lawyers are disbarred or struck off the roll for financial misconduct than for any other reason. It's really as simple as that.
And you gotta understand, this isn't just about outright theft. It also includes stuff like commingling, mixing your client's money with your firm's business funds, or running a trust deficit where you don't have enough cash to cover what you owe. Even just failing to give your client a clear statement of where their money went can be enough to end a career.
All right, let's move on to our second bucket. This category is all about the actual day-to-day practice of law, how a lawyer handles their cases, their clients, and the courts themselves.
This can be anything from repeated, sloppy mistakes, like missing court dates so often your client's case gets thrown out, to more deliberate acts. Overreaching is just a fancy term for charging a fee that's outrageously high. Touting is basically that ambulance chaser stereotype, paying people for client referrals. And of course, lying to a judge. That is an absolute red line you do not cross.
Our third bucket is a reminder that, for a lawyer, your conduct outside the office still matters. You represent the profession, even when you're on your own time.
So if you're convicted of a crime that involves dishonesty, something like fraud or theft, your legal career is almost certainly over. But it can also include public behavior that's so bad it makes the whole profession look terrible. Think about a lawyer getting into a drunken brawl that makes the news. That privilege of being a lawyer comes with 24/7 expectation.
Okay, so we know what misconduct looks like. But what actually happens when a client, or maybe another lawyer, lodges a formal complaint? Well, that kicks off a very specific and formal process.
First, the Legal Practice Council, or LPC, that's the body that regulates lawyers, launches an investigation. They get both sides of the story. If the complaint seems to have merit, it goes to an investigative committee. If they agree it's serious, it moves on to a full-blown disciplinary hearing. This is like a trial, and the attorney can even have their own lawyer represent them.
So, after that hearing, if the attorney is found guilty, what are the consequences? Well, the penalties range from a simple slap on the wrist all the way to the complete end of a career. For the more minor stuff, the outcome might just be a fine or a formal reprimand, which is basically a serious warning that goes on the attorney's permanent record.
Now, a more serious penalty is suspension. In this case, the attorney is actually banned from practicing law for a set period of time, maybe 6 months or a year. It's a chance for them to reflect, and they are allowed to return to the profession afterwards.
And then we have the ultimate penalty, being struck from the roll. The High Court literally orders the attorney's name to be removed from the official list of lawyers. They can't practice law, they can't call themselves a lawyer, nothing. This is that professional death sentence we talked about earlier.
So how in the world do the courts decide between a fine and striking someone off for good? It all comes down to one single, fundamental test. This is the one question they have to answer. And it's so important to understand this isn't about punishment. It's about protecting the public. The court has to ask, after everything this person has done, can we still trust them with the privilege of practicing law?
And this right here perfectly illustrates the core difference. The courts can forgive an honest mistake, even a really costly one. That's negligence. But what they really struggle to forgive is dishonesty.
Lying to a client, stealing trust money, misleading a judge, those actions attack the very heart of what it means to be a lawyer. That's a breach of character, not just a mistake in practice.
This table sums it all up. If a lawyer makes an honest mistake, negligence, the consequence is usually a civil claim. They have to pay the client back for the damages. But if they breach ethics, that's misconduct. The consequence is disciplinary action. And the remedy isn't just about paying back money, it's about potentially losing their license to practice law. The difference, once again, is character.
So we come all the way back to where we started. If being a lawyer is a privilege and not a right, what does that demand? It demands so much more than just legal knowledge. It demands a character of unwavering integrity. Because when a lawyer stands before a court, they don't just represent a client, they represent the very ideal of justice itself. And that's a privilege that has to be earned every single day.